Good evening, good evening. Hi, my dear friends. Welcome to day 4 of the B101 Zaza Challenge. We did take a break on Saturday and Sunday for a little rest, and yesterday, load shedding got the better of me. I had not realized that 6 o'clock would be load shedding time until when it was time for me to go live, and I couldn't. So that's why today I started earlier so that by the time um, load shedding happens at 6 p.m., then we'll be done with our session. So today we're talking about spirituality. It's day 4 of the Zazi Challenge. What is the B101 Zazi Challenge? It's a challenge to really just get you on that journey of self awareness. I'm doing this as a challenge really just to ignite your passion a little bit and remind yourself who you are, and just be you. The time has come in life where it's always beneficial to be you more than being somebody else that has been scripted or trying to figure out who they need to be because now you looking at your life based on someone else's eyes. No, this session is really just for you to give yourself time and pay and space to pause and reflect on what makes you you, how you want to define yourself, how you want to live your life, and so forth. So today, let's get on with it. Who am I? I am Numisa Nomna Mbusi. You're welcome to call me Nomna, and I will be your host for the day. And who is Nomna? Nomna is a writer, Nomna is a mom of 3, Nomna is a design entrepreneur. She's not just that, she loves adventure, she's an adventure lover, she is a tree hugger who loves love, peace, happiness, and all kinds of positivity. And she's a difference maker, consistently always trying to find ways to make a difference in people's lives. And I'm hoping that today will make a difference in your life with this Zazi challenge. All right, so our content today, we're talking about spirituality as indicated. Spiritual hygiene, and also a checklist for assessing your current spiritual practices to see if they are where you would like them to be. All right. So, what is spirituality? As Africans, especially in South Africa, I grew up in families where there was more religion than spirituality. And in these recent years, especially in the last 3 years, there's been a rise in spirituality in general, specifically African spirituality. So I thought it's important that we include this in our getting to know ourselves, right? So the way that I approach or define spirituality, to me, it refers to a sense of connection to something greater than oneself. That connection can be to a higher power, a universal consciousness, nature, or even to one's own inner self. I call that higher being in my world, I call it God, right? And also I call it the creator, that for me refers to, when I'm talking about spirituality, I'm talking about connecting to that force that is bigger than all of us, the ultimate creator that started all of this, and also the spirit in ourselves, like the intangible aspect of our being alive, right? Yes. Okay, so why does it matter? We grew up in environments where we were more driven towards religion, church, and all that, knowing God through church. But now, as you grow up, I was one of those people that literally just drifted away from church for my own personal reasons. And even till this day, I realize that I'm not really affiliated to a church because my way of viewing my connection to God is more personal. It's a one-on-one, right? So, what difference does spirituality make in our lives? It helps us cultivate a deeper sense of connection and meaning in life, and it's important for us to cultivate that spirituality, because it's a way for us to be able to be mindful of who we are as a people, right? And it helps us stay present in the moment, especially when we're going through tough times. Those are the times when we require to dig deeper into our beings, deeper than being alive, deeper than the aspects that we can make sense of with our lives, right? Yes. So the first way that is just being mindful, giving ourselves time to actually be present in the moment in our lives, right? Whether in a thought form, in your feelings, the physical sensations, and also grounding yourself through prayer and meditation and connecting yourself to the present moment. Okay, so another way that we can cultivate a deeper sense of connection and meaning through spirituality is about practicing gratitude, being thankful for what we have in our lives and the beauty of the world around us, and reflecting on the things that we are grateful for, no matter how small they may seem. In a lot of times, you find that a grateful heart is a happy heart. When you start being grateful for the fact that you are alive, you start valuing life in itself. And the more you value life, the more good things you will notice in your life. Okay, so what other ways can we connect ourselves to that spiritual aspects of ourselves? Connecting with nature has a powerful way of connecting us to something greater than ourselves. For me, in most instances, it will happen in smaller ways. Like, for example, I find myself looking at a set of ants that are busy going about finding their food, and then I realize, oh my God, there is so much more to life in on the planet than us as human beings. We are all really just a tiny fraction of what life is about. And at the end of the day, we are all interconnected with all the animals, with all the plants. So that perspective helps to stay grounded and recognize that there's more to life than just you as a human being, but you are a factor or one aspect that is contributing to the bigger ecosystem that is called life. So, what I also encourage sometimes is to explore different spiritual practices. Okay, can I pause? I'm also cooking, multitasking, and I need to check on my pot. So please give me a minute, please. Thanks. I'm back. I'm back. So, if, for example, you grew up being oriented to a church environment and being a religious person, going to church, and somehow your spirituality being centered around that, it doesn't hurt sometimes to actually go and explore bigger than what you have been accustomed to or groomed within in terms of your religious upbringing or spiritual upbringing. It doesn't hurt to actually explore different ways of connecting, because in the world that we live in today, there is such a huge need to connect back to our spiritual aspects of our lives, because life is just getting more complicated and sometimes religion doesn't answer all the questions. Give yourself the room to explore what spirituality means to you and how you can express it, or how you'd rather express it, right? Another way of connecting to your spiritual aspect is through serving others. When you help others, it gives you a deeper sense of purpose, and it also fulfills the saying that is prominent in the African way that says, we A person is a person because of others. You are because we are. Ubuntu. When we are able to serve others, then we are able to remain connected to our humanness and recognize the spiritual aspect of all our being, that ultimately we are all just spirits on the planet that are here to fulfill a certain purpose. And when you serve others, in a way, your purpose gets unfolded into your life to a degree where you realize why you even actually matter as a human. Okay, so I have 7 tips that I've compiled, right, that can help us to practice spiritual hygiene. So, what is spiritual hygiene? For me, the way that I relate to spiritual hygiene, it's really just about making sure that I have a good spiritual balance in terms of my overall well-being. I feel connected at a spiritual level, at a physical level, at a mental level, to the inner world that exists within me, and also to the outer world that surrounds me in my environment. Right? So, how can you do that? One of the ways is setting time aside for daily meditation or prayer. We all pray and meditate differently, and sometimes it's not just about sitting still and doing all sorry. Sometimes it's about for one of the ways that I usually meditate, the one that works best for me, when I'm about to prepare myself for the day in the morning, when I'm taking a bath, I play some music that will ignite whatever aspect of my being, my spiritual being that needs to be warmed up or taken care of. Then I'll play music that will meditate me into that state of Zen, right? Also, when I'm about to do certain tasks, I give myself room to actually just talk to God about the tasks that I'm going to be undertaking, so that God becomes the factor that drives my actions. That I found gives me a certain confidence when I execute my daily tasks. I feel that sense of a force that is bigger than just me that takes over in the activities that I do. Usually that happens if I give myself time to meditate before I get started. All right. So, what other way? Engaging in physical exercise is another way of connecting to our spiritual self. Remember that when you do physical exercise, you release stress from your body and you release negative energy. Remember that a spirit is an energetic aspect of your being that you're now engaging with. So when you're being physical, you're basically just energizing the spirits, the spiritual energy in your life, in your body, mentally, physically, and that can actually reduce stress and it can actually keep you mentally sharp. Another way of maintaining good spiritual hygiene, like I've said, is spending time in nature. When you spend time in nature, you tend to tap into the tranquility that is nature. Sometimes we think it's a big thing, but meanwhile, it's a small thing. Like, for example, during lunchtime, giving yourself a moment to go and sit outside and actually enjoy the sun hitting your face beautifully. Or maybe just going outside and sitting on the grass and sitting flat, flat, flat on the grass in order for you to kind of just tap into Mother Nature and nurture the spirit. Another way is cleansing your space. There's various ways of cleansing space, and I think it's an important matter, especially in this day and age wherein there are so many spiritual attacks that are just going around the world in general. Such attacks, like I would make an example with like COVID-19. Remember how COVID-19 just caused so much havoc, and at the end of the day, it was in the air, you know. So it's important that we maintain clean spaces. some of the ways of maintaining a clean space other than just cleaning it, general cleaning. Another way, you can use things like sage to smudge your space, or you can use essential oils. Essential oils are powerful in terms of tapping into the natural aspects of life to actually balance the energies in your space. Another way of reviving the spiritual aspect of yourself is connecting with like-minded individuals. What I found is that when you find people that you can relate to on a spiritual level, you are able to have conversations that are aligned. For example, it's difficult to think that you will have a conversation about spirituality with people that have a different belief system, because ultimately you end up debating aspects of your beliefs instead of just unpacking the aspects of your spirituality that are similar or common. So make sure that you find yourself a larger community that you can relate to, that is aligned to your spiritual outlook. For example, if you are more aligned to the natural ways of tapping into your spirituality, and that is your basic spiritual form, you want to connect with other nature lovers. For example, if you practice African spirituality and in a traditional sense of ubungoma and all that, it helps to have other people surrounding you that also have a similar spiritual belief system that will actually help you ground it and help you to feel that sense of community. Another way of maintaining good spiritual hygiene is practicing self-care. So how do we practice self-care? It's about really keep making sure that we engage in activities that make us feel happy, that make us feel fulfilled. We take time to rest and we take time to recharge our bodies. Most times in this day and age that we live in, the world is fast. We're constantly living through from one power activity to another power activity, and emotionally and spiritually we get exhausted. So when you give yourself time to actually just pause and reflect, you're actually giving yourself, your spirit, a moment to actually just realign with the bigger purpose. Sometimes if you're just running along with the activities, you can actually even go away from the purpose of why you are actually even existing or even doing the things that you need to be doing with your life. Okay, so we've spoken about these ways of keeping a good spiritual hygiene, but now the question is, for you personally, where are you in terms of your spiritual practices? Do you pay attention to how you connect spiritually? Are there specific things that you do in your current routine that linked to nurturing the spiritual aspect of your being? Well, there is a checklist that you can use to assess your current routines and habits. One of those items in the checklist is consistency, checking with yourself. How often are you engaging in your spiritual practices? Do you have a regular routine, or is it just sporadic? For me, when I'm doing this consistency check, what usually happens is when I start experiencing more challenges in my life than flow, that's when I know that I have not been consistent with my spiritual practices. And usually the first thing I do is then I just go back, zone in, and go and realign myself spiritually so that I can feel ease. Because I feel that when I'm connected thoroughly spiritually, I do not get that sense of challenges being heavy on my shoulders, because I recognize that there's a higher being that is taking care of those challenges. I'm just a vessel and a channel. So when I store that energy in my body, I'm exhausting myself, and as a result, it makes it hard then to execute what I need to execute. Also, another checklist is purpose. What is the purpose behind your spiritual practices? Are you seeking connection? Are you seeking guidance? Are you seeking peace? Or are you seeking something else? Usually that then links in also to the consistency aspect. When you're doing that self-check, you want to check what have I been connecting on in the last so long. Remember, at any given point in time, how you connect will be related to what you are dealing with currently in your life. For example, if you're going through a challenging time, you want to seek guidance, you want to feel connected, so that whatever challenge that you're experiencing, you are able to handle it, right? But if you're not necessarily going through any challenges, but rather you just want to feel zen, things are going well, and you want to take that in, then you will be aligning yourself towards spiritual practices that give you that sense of peace, right? And also, what is your intention with your spiritual practice? Are you just doing it because it needs to be done, or are you doing it intentionally without just going through the motions? Or are you engaged, or are you distracted, or are you disconnected? These are the elements that will actually guide you to say, how invested are you in your spiritual practice? Other aspects, for example, progress. Do you see growth in your spiritual journey? That can be very difficult to assess. But I will tell you this. When I started giving, give me a second, I need to check on the port. Okay, I'm back. So I was saying, when I started my journey of really paying attention to my spirituality, it was at a time when I felt God calling me, and there were so many ways that He was doing it, and I got to a point where I could not just ignore His call. I had to listen. But now, initially, I went around asking people, hoping for guidance. Eventually, I realized that actually this guidance that I'm looking from other people, it exists within me, inside me. All I need to do is to tap in, you know. So that's when I started paying more attention to my relationship with my God one on one. And through time, I started realizing that there are specific differences and changes that I'm noticing. I started picking up what are the specific practices that I do and what are the results that I get from those practices. Remember that those practices, they're aligned to your belief system, they're aligned to your values, they're aligned to your goals. So at the end of the day, you want to make sure that the practices that you start adopting and developing, they're actually aligned to your overall well-being. Also, it's important to recognize that at the end of the day, we are all doing this because we want to have balance. We want to have that sense of balance in our lives, wherein all the aspects of your being are taken care of, where you feel fed and you feel fulfilled at the inner core most self, that feeling of fulfillment that is not attached to your paycheck, that is not attached to your dress, that is not attached to any of these physical aspects that we exist in within the lives that we live on earth, right? So, are you taking time to reflect on your spiritual practices? Are you approaching your spiritual practices with self compassion and kindness? Are you allowing yourself to make mistakes and learn from them rather than striving for perfection? When we're talking about specifically mistakes, I will tap into the one thing that I felt was a mistake in my journey, though after realizing, I realized that actually, mm, yes, I went that way because I did not know, I was not informed, but it's not necessarily my way. I remember the first time I got exposed to using um, herbs to connect. Initially, it wasn't something I was familiar with, and I had a sense of discomfort. But because at the time I was desperate to find some kind of clarity, I did use some of those herbs that I got. What I found was that I did not like the feeling that I got when I used the herbs. And secondly, I realized that I feel like they're actually taking me away from my path. So, in recognizing that, I started focusing deeper on the connection that was working for me, which was that one-on-one connection that I was developing with God. And the more I focused on that, the more it became very clear that these herbs, they do not belong in this. So yes, I did get rid of them. I'm not saying there's something wrong with herbs. If they work for you, great. But I am saying that I recognize that they don't necessarily work for me. Not that they're not powerful, but my spirit does not align with them well. You know? And when I made that discovery, it made my journeys that much different because I realized that even with medicine, actually, most of the time, my body is not comfortable with me taking Panados and all kinds of medicine to heal ailments that I experience. So I started respecting my body. I started respecting my spirit and I started listening to it. And I started on that journey of when I feel a discomfort, I actually ask now from my spirit, okay, spirit, what is wrong? You know? And with me asking that question and meditating on it and tapping into it, I was able to now get to the root cause of my discomfort. And I would then find non medicinal ways of realigning myself. I'm not saying do that. I'm just making an example to say sometimes it's important to have that self compassion, kindness to yourself, assessing your spiritual practices, understanding what works for you, because what works for other people may not necessarily work for you. All right, then the last aspect that I'm going to touch on is spiritual calendars. As indicated, there's different types and ways of spirituality, and of course, there's specific practices that will be related to that spiritual belief system that you have. So, what do you have in your spiritual calendar? Do you actually keep one? There are some specific occurrences that usually make a significant feature in spiritual calendars. For example, New Year's Days. Most of the spiritual traditions, they celebrate the start of the new year with rituals, prayers, ceremonies. But now, when that new year is then depending on your spirituality. For example, there's Chinese New Year, there's the Ethiopian New Year, there's the Kwanzaa, the African traditional, African original New Year, and then there's the calendar New Year, the 1st Jan. Obviously, for you and your spirituality, you will know when you recognize your new year is beginning. Some see it as the day that they're born, as their new year, the beginning of a new year. Yeah. Another one is equinoxes and solstices. These 4 annual events, they mark the changing of the seasons. And if you're someone that is aligned to the natural evolution of nature, right, then those are some of the periods and ceremonies that you will honor when nature is going through its natural cycle. I know for a fact because I also am someone that is highly connected to nature. So those are some of the times in my life that I consciously diarize and practice specific rituals to align myself to the natural evolution of the natural world. Also, lunar and solar eclipses These are some of I see them as some of the powerful moments for spiritual reflection and renewal, especially because they're celestial events that are linked to the natural cycles of life. And as I've said, I've highlighted that for me, spirituality is highly linked to the nature, the natural ecosystem in its entirety. So those are some of the areas that are powerful moments that I use for spiritual reflection. For you, it may be different. You may have your own ways of gauging your spiritual calendar and what matters the most to you. And in a lot of different religions, we have then holidays such as Christmas, Hanukkah, the Diwalis, and so forth that are celebrated in various ways. And then we have pilgrimages. You find that, for example, some people will take journeys where they will be visiting sacred sites. And then you also have personal observances wherein you will have your own personal spiritual practice, like, for example, the daily meditation, your daily prayer moments, your journaling, which can then help you keep yourself connected with your inner self and also keep you connected with the divine. So I've outlined these general spiritual calendar items, but at the end of the day, what really matters is what appeals to you, right? And what really matters is being able to respect your own spiritual practice and also to recognize that it's not enough to just follow what has been preached to you by your parents or your caregivers when you're growing up. At some point, you get to a point where you need to now determine for yourself how you want to keep your spirit revived. All right, it's been real. It's now 10 to 6, and so in 10 minutes we will have load shedding in the area of the world where I'm at. So this is where we end today. Tomorrow we will continue. Tomorrow's we'll then look at visioning, the part that I love. You know, coming up with your vision for your life, envisioning your best life. I love that part. I've been looking forward to that part, and we get started with it tomorrow. It's day 5, so we'll also do it at 5 o'clock tomorrow because of the load shedding challenge that we have in my schedule this particular week. So I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow, 5 p.m. Visioning. Cool. Hi, it's Audrey. I'm sorry we started early today because of load shedding. I have load shedding at 6. Yesterday I missed that, and as a result I could not go live. So today I thought I'm gonna start early, but I'm about to click off now, so I will repost this as a replay. You're welcome to watch it. I know it's always better to watch live, but hey, you don't miss out at all because everything has been recorded. You can rewatch as a replay. Well, enjoy your evening, guys. Thank you very much for making the time to be here. I love these sessions. And something that I forgot to mention. You know, I find that these sessions are so divinely orchestrated, guys. Like sometimes I just ask myself, I like, it's like the thing that I need to talk about. God takes me on a journey in itself before the session happens. Like, for example, the song that was playing this morning on my playlist before coming live, as I was preparing for my day, taking a bath and knowing that today this is what I'm talking about, it tells me that I'm on purpose, and this it's not in vain. These conversations that we're having, this Zazi challenge, it is divinely orchestrated. On that note, see you all tomorrow.